on? Is this working? I think it is. I know my audio is still playing, but I'm just kind of checking some things out here. Hello everyone who's saying hello. So I guess you can hear me okay and things look okay. If not, let me know. I'm using an entirely new computer today, so I'm still figuring out some things and setting some things up. But it seemed to go okay this morning for my electronic literature class after a few hiccups. But it seems to be okay at the moment, or it seemed to be okay for the second section. It seems basically okay now. So hopefully it stays okay. Let me go ahead and pause the music and start talking about what I plan to do for class today. So good. Okay, thanks. I'm getting confirmation from the Twitch chat. It's interesting, I always say you can use Twitch or Discord, but for this section, there seems to be people who like using the Twitch chat, and that's great. The other section, they're all Discord pretty much, but hey, it's all good. Discord shows up here. Of course, Twitch shows up in the other sidebar thing if you're watching this on Twitch, but otherwise it's not recorded or wrapped up into Twitch at all. So today we're going to be talking about algorithms, and I'm going to try a few things out. As I said, I've got a new setup here, and so it's giving me some new options that I'm going to try to do some things with. So this will be a bit of kind of see how it goes, a day to see how some things go. But I want to talk about the things that are assigned and that are on the module as we kind of move through this and really start wrapping up the first module, which is pretty exciting. So I am going to talk about the Manifesto Assignment, which is due Wednesday. But let's take a look first of all at the schedule in the modules page. So we can kind of get our bearings a little bit. Oops, that has the wrong date attached to it. That's not Friday, that's Monday. And let me just fix this here. But I hope you all had a good extended Valentine's Day weekend. Nice 3-day weekend, right? I feel like I'm still just playing catch up with this class and so many other things, but my main activity was finishing this new desk I'm using today, and then also this new computer, getting it set up and working, which obviously you can't see, but it is a beast. It is much more powerful than my previous computer, and so I'm streaming right now at 60 FPS, and I don't know if that affects how you see it. Like, I don't know if you would have to have a good internet connection to see it at 60 FPS, but hopefully it'll drop back to 30 if it needs to. If it's an issue, let me know, because I can change what I stream at. I can change. In fact, maybe I'll just go ahead and switch it to 30 if it'll let me do it in the middle of a stream, because I feel like 60 is going to be maybe too much. Let me just see. Oh no, I can't do it while I'm streaming. So hopefully it's okay. Hopefully Twitch kind of transliterates that for you, but if it is an issue, let me know. I can always restart the stream if it is much of an issue. But what I was going to say is, like, with this new computer, I'm going at 60 FPS, and it's using 1.8% of my CPU right now, which is crazy, because am I crisp? Good, because I went with the i9 processor on this. I kind of splurged because I was trying to make something that's going to be good for machine learning, but also for just future proofing. So I went ahead with the i9, and man, it is fast. The GPU is not so great, but it's still really good. It's still better than what I had before. The GPU is, what I could acquire, what I could get, which was still overpriced for what it was, but not that much. Like, it was okay. But I figure maybe in a year or two, I might be able to buy a 3080 or something similar, and then actually, have a even more future-proof system. Ultimately, I do want to play games, but I'm interested in doing machine learning, and you need a pretty good GPU to do that. So I'm a little bit behind. But thankfully, Google Colab, which I've introduced you all to, you can do pretty good. It has a really good GPU built into it, so you can use a GPU in Google Colab if you want to do machine learning, and that's what I usually do. I just wanted to do it on my own computer instead of Google's computer. So anyway, a bit of a tangent there. Sorry about that. I'm pretty excited about my new computer. I'm still trying to get the hang of it. I am currently using Windows on it. I'm going to switch it to a dual boot with Linux, but at the moment I just for the sake of getting something that would work today, I just went ahead with Windows. Linux usually takes a little bit longer to configure and set up, but I wanted to get this running so I could stream and use it today. And I've also got it set up so I can use my laptop also on the stream. Okay, good. So, but everything else basically looks the same, I assume, to you all. Like, there's the browser there, there's the bird cam, which has a visitor at the moment. Looks like that dark-eyed Junko. And I can switch to the bird cam in full view if I want to. In fact, maybe let's just take a better look at. Oh, he left. Or she. I think that's the female. Oh, they're back. So let me. Yeah. There you go. So I can still do this, but I thought it was kind of cool to have the circle, kind of like you're looking through a portal. There it is. Nice. Okay. Anyway, and everything else hopefully looks the same. But yeah, let me know if you see something exciting over there. I think that Junko is pretty exciting, but if you see the woodpecker, definitely let me know in chat. Okay, so the main new thing today is Storyface, and I want to talk about that a little bit and sort of take a look at some of your responses. I guess I won't pull up your discussion page because that would show your real names, but if you have thoughts you want to share on Discord or Twitch, you can let me know. You can certainly share them. I also want to see if I can talk about Hang the DJ a little bit. I mean, that was meant to be a discussion that we would have, and we would kind of talk about different points, different questions. One of the questions is, just what is the basic premise? Like, what are we actually watching when we watch that episode? What are Frank and Amy, the Frank and Amy that we get to see? Like, what is their deal? Like, are they the real people? Are they algorithms? And obviously, as you hopefully know from having watched it, the people that we are watching on the screen for most of that episode are not the real Frank and Amy. They are the personification of algorithmic representations of Frank and Amy. If you remember the story, the Soft Truth story by Lee Alexander, there's a sense in which the person that we're hearing from throughout that whole story is not an actual person, but an algorithmic shadow person, a person implied by algorithmic assemblies of data. I think the Frank and Amy that we see in that episode might be similar, might be the same kind of thing. I mean, that's my way of understanding that story. I want to get some thoughts about that, but ultimately, like, if they are algorithmic representations, one of the questions is, how does that algorithm actually work? And so there is one scene where Frank and Amy talk about that, and they have different ideas about how that algorithm might actually be working to put them with their ultimate match. Interestingly, I don't think I can show you that scene. I assumed that there would be some issues like this, but I was kind of interested to see how it played out, which is that if I go to Netflix, it's got the web codec thing on it, their digital rights management thing on it. So if I play this episode here, you can see the captions, but not the imagery for the video. So I think that's pretty funny.
Like everything.
So this is the scene. It looks, I mean, it's just them talking to each other in kind of a gazebo thing. I don't know if there's any point in me playing it, but I just thought it was interesting the way that Netflix prevented it from showing up at all on the Twitch stream, which makes sense. I mean, I assumed that there would be something there. I was just kind of struck by how it actually, how it worked. So there's that. And I also want to talk about Storyface. Storyface, I hope you realize, and I mentioned this in Discord, is a joke. It's not real. You're not actually talking to people. You're not actually being paired up with people. It's not actually taking your phone number and doing anything with it if you give it your phone number. So just want to make sure to get that out of the way. But I will talk about it. I want to see if I can play it. And I think I can play it by running my other computer through here. And we'll kind of play with that a little bit. And then I want to talk about the code practice and kind of see where you are with that. If you have questions or anything else, I'd be happy to try to talk about it. But basically, these are meant to be exploratory, meaning like, do your best with them. I will try to help you if you get stuck, but ultimately, like, your success or failure with this class doesn't really hinge on these code practice things. They're here as part of what we're doing, obviously, but I'm not going to punish you if you don't get it right. I want you to do whatever makes sense to you with this, and especially this last one, it's kind of ambitious. Like, it's something that I hope you can do it, and 12 of you, I think, have submitted it so far, but if you can't, or if you're struggling with it, that's okay, and I would like to help you with it, but ultimately we are going to move on too. So if you end up you want to just leave it and move on, that's okay too. I'm not too worried about that. Okay, so let's take a look at Storyface actually, because I've got it set up here. Oh, we have discussion in Discord. I just saw it pop up here. Cool. So, Sure. Okay. So it looks like you all have some thoughts about Hang the DJ. So let's talk about that a little bit first, or maybe I will talk about it, and you can share your thoughts, and I'll react to them, I guess. This is why I was, I didn't intentionally, I had wanted to have like the Discord conversation about this, but so Amber, you're saying that you think this is how the algorithm works. Do you think it's? I guess the question is, do you think it's true? Like, do you think it's an accurate representation of an algorithm? I mean, it's a work of fiction, so they don't really have any responsibility to be super accurate, but I mean, as far as conveying an idea of an algorithm for us, do you feel like it's in some ways, accurate? But I think it's interesting that your follow-up there is that it seems to make them sadder, and it definitely does. Like, things get worse and worse for them, and they appear to suffer emotionally, right? Like, so I am kind of, there's sort of an ethical question. Some of the other Black Mirror episodes experiment with that idea of suffering in an algorithmic sense. Yeah, the simulation at the end, right? I mean, one of the questions too that we can ask about this Pikachu is, how do you start noticing that it's a simulation? I mean, there are different clues throughout the episode that kind of build up to that, and I don't know. I'm just wondering what you noticed about it. When did you realize that it was a simulation, basically? Yeah, by the way, check it out. I got the, I have a new keyboard too, so listen to how loud it is. Clickety clackety. Yeah, so Firecracker on Twitch points out the skips, every time you throw a rock, it skips 4 times. 3-hour days, yeah, interesting. Yeah, and it ran through a whole bunch. There are actually 2 different passages, but there was like where she kept getting date after date after date, or relationship after relationship after relationship. They were all very, very, very timed, and very, very many more. So Brandon, yeah, the 2 that we see most of the episode are not real. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. They were not real. We are real, I think. At least I'm pretty sure we're real. But the 2 that we see in this episode, they're not. They are the test people, or the test case for the real Frank and Amy, who we just see briefly at the end when they're in a bar and they sort of make eye contact. And they've both kind of swiped right, or whatever the equivalent is for their app, and they've been matched by the algorithm. The entire episode that we watched before takes place in the milliseconds between them, like noticing each other on the app, and then actually noticing each other in real life. That's the experience. So the full, however long it takes, however long it's meant to be, year, 2 years. Yeah, that giant wall was kind of a big mystery too, right? Like, if there is some kind of weird, like, you don't know. I mean, maybe it's some sort of post-apocalyptic sort of Maze Runner type society, and there's this giant wall where you're allowed to go have relationships, but you can't outside. I mean, there's certainly dystopian fiction that has like giant walls like that in it. So I thought when I first watched it, I thought it might be something like that, or like they're sort of set up in some kind of breeding program. Who knows? But it turns out that yes, they are walled into that simulation. Yeah. So I'm going to play a little bit of this scene so you can actually see the dialogue, because they actually have a couple of different ideas about it, right? So this is first going to be Amy talking, where she says, what if all it's actually doing is gradually wearing us down?
Putting us in one relationship after another for random durations in a random sequence. Each time you get a little bit more pliable, a little bit more broken, until eventually it coughs up the final offering and says that's the one. And by that point, you are so defeated and so exhausted that you just accept it. You settle.
Okay, so that's one idea for how an algorithm might do this. Can you hear that, by the way? Like, I hear it because I'm watching it, but I'm wondering if Twitch also blocks the audio. I feel like it probably does, but I'm just curious. But anyway, hopefully you saw the text there. Amy's saying, what if it just sort of wears us down? And this might be what you would call a brute force algorithm, something that just tries oh, you can hear the audio. Okay, good. So this is a kind of algorithm where you would just run through every possible permutation of every possible choice until you find the best match. And like, best match could be configured different ways. but you could still, but the idea is you just run through everything until you're done, and until there's nothing left. You basically eliminate every other option. So that's one way to think about how an algorithm might approach a complex problem like pairing up two people in a dating situation. So that's the way I described it there. By the way, that's kind of a pseudocode way to do it, and that was something you can do in Code Practice 3, I think it was, where I proposed that you could do something as pseudocode instead of actual code. And what I just did there, I narrated it verbally. Like, here's what it would do. It would, first of all, identify every choice and then run through every permutation of every choice until it had exhausted every possibility and then compared them. That's a very computationally intensive way to do matching. So in terms of like people, let's say we had Frank, we have Amy, but we have 7,000 other people. What you're doing is you're taking each person, pairing them with every other 6,999 persons. So you're doing 7,000 comparisons per person. So you're doing 7,000 times 7,000, and then you've got an astronomical number. Computers can do that, but it's like very, very intensive and time consuming for even computers to do it. Maybe my new computer can handle it, but probably not. Yeah, so that's one way to do that kind of comparison algorithm. Frank has a different idea. Let's see what he says.
And then you have to live the rest of your life convincing yourself you didn't.
Well done. That's one of the bleakest things I've
bleak,
ever heard.
Right?
Thank you.
This scene is really well shot too. I wish you could see it.
Do you want to know my theory? Let's assume the system isn't random, yeah? It's as sophisticated as they say it is.
Okay.
Right, so using these, it
So it slurps up all your reactions.
Yeah, it builds up a complex profile.
Complex profile, right?
Every crazy thought you've ever had, all your dreams and your weaknesses and your...
And your mad theories.
Yeah, like everything in your head.
Right.
Right, so if it's everything in your head, does it have thoughts?
All right, so now you're going to say, what if that's us and we're stuck in the simulation?
Well, how do we know?
I think that settles it.
Well, I might have been programmed to go out.
Okay.
All right, so she punches him and then he says, ow. So there's actually a pretty interesting metaphysical thing going on in that conversation at that point, because it raises the simulation theory, which is one way of viewing the basic metaphysical question of whether or not existence is real, like whether or not we know we exist. And that's a classic philosophical question that has basically a new version in the context of computers, because if the theory goes, if computers can simulate reality, how do we know that we're not currently experiencing a computer simulation? This is sort of the matrix idea. But the idea that Frank proposes before going down that route is also another way of thinking about algorithms, that there's a complex profile, right? That there's a sense of things that it knows about each individual, including all of their interior thoughts and their traits and quirks and everything, and then it uses those things in some ways to determine which of those matches is best. But notice how there's no, in that explanation, there's no interiority to that. There's no sense of like step by step how it knows that Frank and Amy are a good match. And what Frank ends up having to do is posit that, what Frank ends up having to do is to posit that identity or that AI that must be doing that might as well be a person. Like, it might as well have thoughts of its own. It might as well have an agency. And this is another way of thinking about an algorithm. This is what you might call a ground up kind of algorithm. This is something like that you see a lot in machine learning, actually, where you give computers a set of like a problem with unknown number of factors or variables ahead of time, and it tries, and it basically through trial and error on its own eventually determines a solution of some sort. And you'll see this when we get into the artificial intelligence unit, which is next. But these kinds of programs, we do tend to call them artificial intelligence because we don't exactly understand how they come to their decisions. We can reverse engineer it basically, but we're not coding it out ahead of time to say, here's what you do, here's how you value different things. We're asking it to compare any number of factors, and our algorithms are written in a way that they can determine which factors are important and pay attention to those and which factors are not important and ignore those. And how it comes to those things is really just through its own evolution. Neural networks is a kind of technology that works this way. So I feel like Frank is kind of describing a neural network kind of algorithm when he describes this here, but he also raises the simulation question, which of course is sort of a joke or a, like a wink to the fact that that's what we are actually watching. We are actually watching them in a simulation. But, as he points out, like perceiving pain doesn't prove that we're not in a simulation. That could be part of the simulation. If our senses, this goes back to René Descartes' classic formulation, right? So René Descartes, the French philosopher, posed to himself a series of questions where he says, how do I know I exist? How do I know that the things I'm seeing are really out there, right? Like if my eyes can be deceived through optical illusions or my ears can be deceived through audio illusions, how can I be sure that I'm ever seeing something how can I ever be sure that I'm not being deceived? How can I actually verify that the world that I see out there is actually out there? And he goes through a thought process where he kind of breaks that down through a thought problem where he ends up saying that the only thing that he knows for sure is that because he can think, he must exist. And this is the classic, I think, therefore I am. Cogito ergo sum is how it's expressed in Latin. There are still some problems with that. It is still a tautological explanation, I think, but it's still something. Like he's basically saying, Descartes is saying, I think because I can recognize myself thinking, I must be a thing that can think. And because I can perceive myself thinking, I must exist. So it's a thing. It's a whole loop, but it's fascinating. Anyway, this is kind of me spinning off on things. Pikachu was asked a pretty interesting question, or Amber actually. What is the relevance of the song at the end? Hang the DJ is the song. So let's find the lyrics. Lyrics sometimes help, right? So is it this one? Yeah. I think this is actually a cover of it, but this is the same lyrics. Okay. So let me just put this in the chat. So I do have an idea about the lyrics. I mean the meaning of that particular song. So Brandon has had the question there. What does prove that we're not in a simulation? I don't know. I do remember. I think it was a couple years ago. Someone came up with what they argued was proof that we are not in a simulation, and I don't remember how it worked, but it had to do with quantum physics, and I did not really understand it. So I don't remember it. But it was something that they did experimentally to determine that there's no way we're currently living in a simulation, and that was responding to a speculation known as like the what is it called? Is it the matrix theory or the simulation theory, whatever? But that hypothesis usually goes that because we can currently use yeah, exactly, Amber. Sometimes the matrix does glitch, which is maybe a clue. But so the simulation theory, if I'm remembering correctly, it goes that because we can currently simulate reality in a pretty limited way, like with VR, and because there are potentially infinite other societies and cultures that have existed in the universe since the beginning of time, and since they could conceivably have created much more complex technology for simulating reality, if the universe is, as we believe, billions of years old, then it is infinitely more likely that a culture would have evolved at some point that can simulate reality the way that we perceive it to a sufficient level that we wouldn't be able to tell the difference between it and that simulation and real reality. I'm kind of mangling it a little bit, but that basically goes that there's a better chance of us being in a simulation than not, according to that theory. But Brittany has actually a pretty interesting point. I think, Brittany, you're kind of responding to the matrix theory, but also going against the grain. I think that's actually I think that's the theme of the song, and so I think that's probably why it becomes the title for this episode, right? Because from what I understand from the song lyrics is there's basically all this stuff going on. There's panic in the streets, right? It's chaos. It's life. It's pain. It's struggle. It's all these things that are actually going on. But the music on the radio is the same boring, bland pop music, and the singer, the point of view in the song is basically saying, "Screw it. Let's get something. Let's make something better. Let's make something different." Right? He's reacting to the dissonance between what he perceives in life and the kind of pleasant, generic, boring music that's on the radio. And so he's saying, "Hang the DJ." Right? Let's flip the script. Let's start over again. So I think that's what's going on in the song and also in the movie, or in the film, the episode, right? Because they have to go against the grain. They have to reject Coach, right? You notice how they defeat the algorithm, or they essentially win the algorithm, not by following the directions or actually going along with whatever Coach was going to say, but by actually getting rid of Coach and just climbing the wall, right? So they get out of it. I think it does raise the question too, like within the context of the episode. If you remember, Frank and Amy, both of them were told, "You're about to meet your ultimate match." Yeah, I think Lynn, it does have a protest song. I think it's a punk song, but it like punk in the context of, punk often has a protest kind of vibe to it. But I think, with Frank and Amy, you remember, we kind of just saw Amy's point of view, but it's implied that Frank has the same opportunity where Coach says, "We found your ultimate match. You're going to meet him tomorrow, but you have one last chance to talk to somebody." They both choose to meet with each other. They aren't actually shown their ultimate match, so it could be that Coach was going to match them up anyway, but we don't know, and they end up, leaving anyway. They reject the simulation, and in that sense, break out of it in a way that succeeds. So it's interesting. And then it kind of raises that question about what about the two that didn't, right? It's a 99.8 match, so 998 simulations succeeded. 998 out of 1,000 succeeded that way. And then, two I guess didn't. Kind of raises that question. Anyway, speaking of matches and dating, I do want to show and talk a bit about Storyface. So I'm going to switch into that. But you all, if you have other questions or thoughts about the episode of Hang the DJ, then let me know. I'm certainly happy to keep discussing it. But I'm going to try to switch this over. So this is going to take me a second, but not too bad. So I had to use my Mac because I'm using my webcam on OBS to stream, and I can't. Storyface needs it. Like Storyface and OBS would fight over the webcam if I tried to use it on here. So I'm going to try to use Storyface over here on my Mac, which I believe I can pull in. Here we go. So let me get rid of Chrome in the background there. Okay, so the shape of it's a little off, but that's because I don't know if I'm using this little capture box thing, and it works really well, but I'm not sure. It really wants everything to be 1920 by 1080, and it doesn't really like anything else. So that's probably something I can change somewhere in a setting, but I haven't had time to play with it yet. But let's see if this works. Okay, so I'm going to be addressing my computer over here, so I won't be looking at this camera quite as much, but you should see me momentarily here. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. There I am. So oh, nice. It's gotten younger. Earlier it said 36. And even before that it was actually accurate. Both of those are younger than I actually am, so that's nice. Thanks, Storyface. So again, just to be clear, in case you came in late, this is fake. I mean, it's real in the sense that it's actually using facial recognition technology, but as far as matching, it's not real. There are no people on the other side of this. So I'm going to go through it here, but I'm not really trying to date anybody. I assure you, happily married, not seeking anyone, not on the market. But if we are looking at this as a work of satire, this is one of the big questions that I posed to a couple of you in the discussion on Canvas. Like, if this is a work of parody or satire, like what is the target? Like, what is it making fun of, or what is it critiquing that it wants us to understand better? I say it, but really, there's a person behind this, Serge Bouchard. So what does Serge want us to do? Like, what is like what is the goal of this as a rhetorical object? I think that's another way to think of this. So let me just go through it a little bit and see. All right, so obviously it's tracking my face, and you can see how the little dots kind of follow my face around. And this is basically training me in the, is the audio coming through that? Sorry, no it's not, okay. So it's basically training you here in the facial, the emotion recognition. So this is, oh, I guess I'm surprised. It's using some emotion or facial recognition API. So the actual facial recognition code is not something Serge wrote, but it's fixing my hair there. It's actually, it's an API that he's using, and it can detect a face, but also interpret the emotions of that face. It is a real technology that exists. It's not something that was created just for this demonstration. This is something that exists in the real world and is used. And there's even a patent. I can show you another digital artifact that explores this idea, if I can remember the name of it. Oh yeah, Stealing Your Feelings. It's a interactive video that does facial tracking like this, but the argument of that one is that advertisers actually have the technology, the ability to interpret your facial reactions when you're looking at your phone. So if you look at your phone, you have your camera on, or even if you don't realize it's on, you can track your emotions and record how you respond to different things that you look at. So we know that all of our clicks are tracked, or even when we scroll and pause at different points on Facebook, all that's tracked, and then Facebook uses that in its algorithm to give you what it thinks you want. But it also is possible, although I don't know if it's actually being used anywhere, but it is technically possible, and a patent exists for using facial recognition and emotion recognition to track advertising analytics. In other words, if they send you a picture of a Burger King ad and like it's a hamburger and you smile, they will record that as a positive interaction and try to give you more of that. But if you look at a hamburger and you frown, then, or you look angry, then it would not do that. So in other words, it's using emotional tracking to track you and advertise to you. But anyway, okay, so let's see. So I have some choices here. Judith White, and I guess you all can give me advice if you feel like there's somebody that looks like a good match. Yeah, it's Pikachu. It's realistic, right? It's designed to look real. Sheila? I like Sheila, but let's see who else it suggests for me. Lola, sure. Tana? Some of these have been added by just people. I'm not sure how you add somebody, but they have been added. 16? Come on. 32. I'm looking at the age here. 19? No. I want someone close to my age. Come on. Yeah, Lucy's not actually 3 years old. That's ridiculous. Working girl. Pam Beasley. There's nobody left. Okay. Yeah, notice, by the way, like it does. One of the things it does is it plays with what you are consenting to or what you're suggesting. So you notice it's not just like try someone else. It's I'll lower my standards. Let's try someone else. So I'll lower my standards. Let's see. Let's see if I can get, not Lucy, not Sandra. Let's do Sheila. Let's say hi to Sheila. So she's a closet organizer. She likes the movie Parasite, loves cleaning, horseback riding, and watching movies, and loves horseback riding. So, okay, we'll go with Sheila. Good. Okay, hello Sheila. Hi, I'm Sheila. Do you clean your house often? So what we're trying to do here, and then you maybe didn't, I don't know if you picked up on this or not, but if you look at me on the left, down here, I think, can you still see me? Making sure that I'm still in here. Okay, so I'm going to get close to it. So I can make my face match whatever emotion, and in the buttons over here, I have to make sure that my facial expression matches the response I want to click on. And if I don't, if I click the wrong thing, or if I don't make my face do the thing that is on that button, then I will be considered a liar. So let's see, do you clean your house often? Now she's all about cleaning, so I should try to say all the time. Got it. It's kind of tricky, right? Me too, we are meant to be. Do you like to cook? Let's see. I have to hold my face in a goofy position. Great, I don't like to cook, so you can cook for me. Do you like horses? What is this facial expression? Is that worried? I guess so. Great, I can teach you how to ride them. She wants to know my phone number. Oh, great. Thanks, Dashlane, for auto-completing that with my real phone number. I don't care. Don't call me, though. Anyway, I don't actually want to... Dashlane is my password manager, and it just popped up to autocomplete with my real phone number. Let me just hide that screen for a second and enter a fake number. Okay. I'm back. Okay, so because whenever I clicked in that box, my password manager is like, hey, here's your phone number. Anyway, let's find someone else. Let's see if I can. So I did that interaction. What does that say? Zapping. That interaction was like positive, like I was trying to do it right, I guess. But let's see what happens if I do it wrong. Let's have a bad time with this conversation with Alicia. Okay, so what do cats represent for you? Okay, being wild, no constraints. So I'm gonna see if I can lie. I'm gonna try to look angry. So liar. Why do you pretend to be happy when you're actually angry? 2 more lies, and we'll let Alicia know that you're lying. You have to click the checkbox to say, I promise I won't lie again. Continue. Would you prefer a dog instead? So notice Alicia doesn't know I'm lying yet. They're much more fun, and we can actually share some activities together. At least they obey you, they care about you, they're in touch with their feelings. So there I said, why do you pretend to be happy? I was trying to look sad. And it says, 1 more lie, and we'll let Alicia know that you're lying. Okay, I promise I won't lie again. If you could be reincarnated as an animal, what would it be? Let's do a bird to fly far, far away. There it goes. Why do you pretend to be happy when you're actually put off? Alicia has been notified that you're lying. I promise I won't lie again. Continue. And she said, oh, she actually left. She said, don't lie to me, and left the chat. So that didn't go as well. But that was kind of the point. I didn't want it to go well. Okay, so let me see. I should probably just mute that screen. So what do you think? I mean, Storyface is, like I said, a work of fiction. I mean, Alicia is not a real person. It looks like a stock photo. I don't know where they actually got the photos for these, but it's not necessarily real. But what do you think it's critiquing? Right? That's ultimately the question. Like, what is the target here if this is a work of satire? So let me pose that question again and see what you think, having seen me do this. So I just saw on Twitch, Brandon just asked a question: does a simulation imply predeterminism? I think so. If a simulation follows rules, then I mean that's usually like a simulation is a rule-based representation. I mean, if we define a simulation that way, then following rules is going to be, predictable, and so that has a sense of determinism to it. And even pseudo-randomness has determinism. Yeah, so Pikachu's Heart, you're saying like it's interesting. It shows that people can say whatever they want to satisfy the other person, and this is something that I think can experience online all the time, right? Like that you have to pretend to be a certain kind of person, or you always kind of tailor your communications with people online. So what else do we do with it, or what else can we do? And Brittany, I don't know if this is like, where is the simulation here? Like, I'm not sure I see a simulation in this particular case, except in the sense that that the Storyface, again, it mimics something specific, right? But I don't think it's actually about simulation. So Amber, are you saying like it didn't do as good of a job matching your facial or interpreting your facial expression? Well, several people are typing. That's always exciting when Discord gets to that point whenever there's lots of people trying to type at the same time. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Great. And so Amber, just to make sure you know that it's not actually. like I'm not looking for anybody, but it's also like the whole thing is a joke, right? Like you get that, right? So and Amber raised, I think, one of the major points of this, which she says, I'm just going back up here, it might be the system only being able to pick up lighter skin complexions. I think that is possibly true. What happens, well, the way to test this would be to see which algorithm it's using under the hood, like which facial recognition and emotional recognition engine it's actually using. Again, as I said earlier, this is not code that Serge Bouchard wrote. That part of it is code that he's using from somewhere else. I don't know exactly where else. I'd have to look at the code to see that. So Amber, so you mentioned the question of skin complexion. This is, when we look at the sort of realm of facial recognition algorithms, this is one of the big issues. And when people talk about algorithmic bias, this is the example. This is an example that some people refer to or talk about. So ultimately, I think that is the critique here. Ultimately, I think that there is the dating app level, as Brittany's pointing out, and that's sort of the narrative framing. But to me, I think the real critique has to do with the facial recognition algorithm and how kind of bad it is, like how it's not really as accurate as we think, or as the people who make these products want us to believe they are. And we can see that very clearly when we see it in this kind of silly way in the context of this app, or creepy way in the context of this app. But we should know that these are the same, like this facial recognition algorithm that's happening here is the same kind of algorithm. I don't know if it's the exact same one, but these algorithms are used like in Nest. The Ring, the doorbells, like the video doorbells. If those are using the same algorithms to identify people and possibly to associate someone with being somewhere to rob a house or whatever, right? If these are things that are being used in a policing context and they're this bad, should they really be used in policing contexts? Probably not. And so these are the kinds of questions that I think this work is raising kind of on the deeper level. And Marie, as you're pointing out, there's that complication too, that just like emotional interpretation is a very subjective thing. And even though we could imagine a computer getting better, like we don't know how good they are or how bad they are, right? There's no transparency in terms of the algorithms. Good point too, Pikachu, like covering your face and mouth, that certainly would avoid that. So I didn't assign this to all to look at, but it is something that I wanted to mention. This is the Algorithmic Justice League, and I was going to show you this project later on when I introduced the idea of the big project for this class, because this is an example of a digital project. But this is a research project by Joy Bolinwini, and she's got a couple of TED Talks and things where you can learn about her basic argument, her research, but actually her website's been reorganized, so I'm trying to figure out where it is now. But she somewhere has, there's a documentary now about this that I have not seen yet, but I would like to see. There is somewhere on here, whoops, oh, this is new. I can't find it now. So, I don't know. I need to spend a little bit more time looking at their new website. But interesting point with sign language. But the point I was making with the Algorithmic Justice League is that she did a research project where she broke down how accurate or not 4 major facial recognition products are, and she compared them in terms of their accuracy, both in terms of predicting the gender of the face and the identity of the face. And she found basically that they all did worse, and some were worse than others, but they all consistently were worse at recognizing dark-skinned women's faces. Like, they could tell that they were faces, but they would more frequently guess the gender wrong or other things wrong about them. The argument here is that the algorithms get those kinds of faces wrong because these algorithms know what faces are because they've been trained. You feed an algorithm what's called training data, so you give it 50,000 faces. 50,000 is usually a good number. And what you find is if you give it 50,000 faces, but most of them are white faces or light-skinned faces, then that's what it's going to get good at doing. It's going to get good at recognizing those faces, and it's not going to be as good at recognizing darker-skinned faces. So one way around this would be to train the AI better, but also to be transparent about how the AI actually works. And so this is a kind of like when Kathy O'Neill was talking about weapons of math destruction. If you remember, one of the big problems with a weapon of math destruction for her was secrecy. And so facial recognition algorithms are a little different, but they are math-based and they are potentially very destructive, but a big part of that destructiveness has to do with their hiddenness. The fact that we don't know exactly how they work or how good or how bad they are, so we as the public. So when these things are proprietary, industry secrets, so whoever makes these things, they're not going to show you the source code or the training data. We should be suspicious of those. We should not trust those. And in fact, there have been cases where that becomes a problem. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting things going on. And I'm interesting too, like I'm seeing the discussion about sign language. That's a whole other avenue of communication, obviously, which is going to be pretty different. And also when you look at someone who's signing, they use their facial expressions in a pretty specific way, right? Like they're usually very expressive or really emotionally, emotive, I guess is the word for using your emotions a lot in your face. And that's something that they've been trained in to, like when you watch like the sign language interpreters on TV. It's another evidence that the things that our face does aren't just this sort of transparent surface upon which our emotions are presented. Like there are things that our faces are canvases that we use in particular ways to construct meaning in ways that we are in control of. And so for a machine or something to look for that and try to read into it is a bit weird. So anyway, back to Storyface. I think that's the main critique, is ultimately that this is not that. Where is Storyface? I don't have Storyface on this computer. Ultimately, I think Storyface's main critique has to do with the fragility and the problems of facial recognition algorithms specifically. And it demonstrates that by being a particularly awkward and maybe creepy implementation of facial recognition algorithms in the context of a dating app. But also, I think it's meant to make fun of dating apps too. I think that's another layer of that. So I don't know if that makes sense. I feel like I kind of rambled to that point, but I did want to make sure to get to that point, and I think I did. So I think we're good as far as talking about things. So we are at the end of our time, so I need to wrap things up, I suppose. Or do you have any? Oh yeah, let me talk briefly about the manifesto that's due Wednesday, and then that'll be our final kind of day for this module. But let me jump to it. So it's really just, I hope it's self-explanatory in the assignment description, but you did something like this way back when we started this module, just in a Canvas discussion page. So I would recommend going back to what you wrote for that. And now that you've learned some things, hopefully, or you've seen some things that you didn't know about before, my hope is that you've got a more, like a richer way to talk about your interest in programming or in computers. But basically, I want you to respond to this idea here. Program or be programmed. That's what Douglas Rushkoff said. So he talked about that in terms of its implications for society, but what does that mean for you? Like, in what sense are you trying to avoid being programmed, and how can the work you do in this class or the things that you learn about Python, for example, help you not be one of the programmed? It's a bird hopping around on the screen window. It's like grabbing the screen. It's going to rip a hole in it. I'm going to go. Hang on a second. Flew away when I walked over towards it, but I don't know what it's been trying to. I've seen that bird on our brick wall a lot, and I don't know what it's up to. I feel like it's trying to poke a hole in the wall. Anyway. The screen will be fine, but when they grip it, it'll make those little tears in it, and I don't want that. Anyway, program or be programmed, do what you can with that. So for Wednesday, I'll create another sign-up Genius for you to sign up if you'd like to attend in person on Wednesday. And I would like to do in person on Wednesday, because that's when I meet in person with my other class. So that's what I would like to offer. And if you would like to attend in person, sign up Genius link, I'll send that around. If you would prefer to stay on Zoom, that'd be okay too. And we'll have class that way for anyone who needs it that way. Yeah, so, and Brandon, I see your question in Twitch. Yeah, I think you emailed me about that too. If you want to just set up a video conference, you can do that. If you go to zachwhalen.net/contact, you can just reserve a time. Let me just type that the URL in here. Let's see. Oh, there's a bird over there. Yeah, so if you go there, Brandon, you can click on, there's a book now button you can click. What was that bird? I didn't see it. I saw there was a bird there, but I didn't see what it was. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up the stream today. Thanks for watching me ramble a bit about algorithms. On Wednesday, we will kind of wrap up this first module, and then I'll introduce the next one and get us started on some things around artificial intelligence. All right, so thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to switch on the bird cam for a minute just in case the bird comes back, and I will see you all later. Where's the bird cam? Oh, there it is.